Righto, back in the shop today. Got Joshy's CRD Patrol. Thought we'd take the opportunity and spend a couple of minutes and just film putting our Tillix kit in one of these things. It's in today for a remap and Tillix. Might even just go through the whole process of tuning one of these and putting the Tillix on it, but we get a lot of questions about how to install them, how to set the Tillix up, how many turns do you need to put it on, where do you start with, so on and so on. So we thought this is a perfect example. This one come in bulk stock. We'll go through the process of what you get in your Tillix kit and how to install it and how to set them up, how we set them up, and go from there. Righto, so most kits that you'll get come with the needle valve. So this is the first one that kind of confuses a lot of people when you start talking about these and adjusting the Tillix valve. We always hear people call up and they go, yeah, I've been turning on the Tillix, but it's not making any difference. I think they get confused and they look at the fact that that's got the nice big Tillix on the side. So that is just the brand, that's Tillix. Lindsay, I believe it's, put me on the spot. I think it's something to do with his kids. I think his daughter's Tilly and his son, I can't remember his names. Lindsay will probably laugh if he sees this, but it's a combination of his kids' names, so that's where it come from. You'd have to ask him what it is. But that's the needle valve. So the needle valve controls your spool rate. It controls how much vacuum we have in the system, right? So basically it's a controlled bleed, or a measurable bleed, that we just open that slowly up. This is the actual boost control. So when you'll want to adjust your peak boost, this is the one you're playing with, right? Most of them will come with a little nipple like that and a boss to weld onto your intercooler pipe. These few bits, a couple of T-pieces and a length of hose. You'll get X amount. We buy ours by the roll off Lindsay, because he's a good lad and hooks us up. Some of the kits will come with a boost map adapter. Now this isn't the one for a Patrol, this is off something else, but I just had it sitting there. So I'll go ahead and pull this cover off just to show you where it goes in case you're going that way. Otherwise I'll show you the different route you can go down to get your boost reference source. Righto, so we got the cover off, cover sitting here. Ended up finding one for a ZD, so I thought I may as well use it to show you. So that's the factory map sensor. Two 10mm nuts, bolts come off. He slips in underneath, there's a couple of O-rings. Not sure if you see that in the bag. There's an O-ring there, an O-ring on top, so it seals. Sits in back under there. Comes with some new long bolts, so you can go back through the top. Super easy to install. The only issue with putting those ones in is obviously it's going to lift the map sensor up that 10-15 mil. So the map sensor sit higher. So generally when you're trying to put these covers back on, you need to put some packers under here where it sits on. Put a couple of packers there and lift it up. I've seen people drill the badge out and the map sensor kind of just sits straight through there. You can bend the tabs up and sit it on there. I've seen other people who just bolt it down. The problem with just bolting it on there, it doesn't hit on the map sensor. All the pressure of this front cover is going to sit on the front of that, on your connection there on that sensor. So my advice would be stretch them up, put some packers underneath there just to lift it up so it's not just loading that up with pressure, because it could eventually break that thing. May not, may do it. Don't know, that's the difference. You want to do it yourself at home and it breaks, that's your problem. When we do it here and something breaks, it comes back on us. So when we put them back on, we generally just pack them. But from now, we don't really use these. Generally, we will remove the intercooler. So these I think are like 40, 50 bucks, somewhere there. So the other thing is you can do is you remove the intercooler and just drill and tap straight into the side here. So whenever we're picking up boost reference, we prefer to go after the intercooler. You will lose a pound or so through an intercooler, generally speaking, whether it's top mount, front mount, whatever, you always get a little bit of pressure drop. So we prefer to go after the intercooler. Now, when you're setting up a Tillix, it doesn't matter, where it's reading from. It's just needs a boost source. Okay, so for this kit, he's got 4 front pipes on there. It actually comes with a little nipple on the side here. So we've pulled that blanking plug out and we've put an elbow on there, so to hook the dyno on, obviously. But that's where we're going to get our boost reference point from. So we'll get some lines and we'll get stuck into it. Righto. So it's also a good idea when you're fitting these kits to have a kind of an understanding about how they work. So basically the actuator on the turbo, hope you can see that. The actuator on the turbo is vacuum operated, right? So the standard system works through vacuum. They do that for a few reasons. One, it's generally easier to control for a factory ECU. Two, when the EGR opens, it can pull the vane shut. So without kind of delving into it too much, the more vacuum this actuator sees, it pulls the actuator rod up, produces more boost. So what we want to do is control that. So what happens is, get that out of the way, the standard one, standard V&T boost controller has clean air source coming in here, vacuum from the motor, vacuum to the turbo. So what it does is it sends vacuum straight to the turbo to create full boost. As it hits its desired boost level, it opens up this solenoid and releases, or leaves atmospheric pressure to come in, so that reduces the amount of vacuum that the V&T nozzle sees. Effectively, we're going to do the same thing, right? So inside the Tillix, a little piston with a spring, super simple idea, nicely made, nicely executed. That spring inside there, we're going to have our boost source come from here. It comes into the front or into the top of the Tillix. So a lot of people ask which way it needs to go. If you pull it apart and have a look, you kind of get a simple idea that boost pressure has to come in through here and it's got to push down on that piston. Okay, I'm back. Boost has got to push down on that piston. The firmer that spring, the more boost pressure we need to push past it, right? So that's the simple basic of how it works. Where's a good starting point to start on these things? A lot of people ask, like, how many turns do I go in? How many turns do I go out? It's all dependent. It's dependent on the spring pressure, dependent on a lot of things. So generally speaking, start with it all the way out. Okay, so less pressure on the spring inside. That's going to be your lowest boost. And then you can crack that nut and start winding it in. The other thing that we see some people get caught out on, and this is one of the new ones. The older ones used to have, you know, boost plus and minus on here, and it was kind of, wasn't back to front, but I think people would look at it and twist this in and out, or they'd look at it from this way, and it was kind of a little confusing. So winding it out anti-clockwise is less boost, winding it in clockwise, compressing that spring is more boost. Okay, so we'll start with it back out here somewhere, lock him off. But basically, we'll get our beautiful Tillix hose and we'll put it onto our boost source. So that's going to come down, figure out a place to mount it. I'll probably just put it straight onto his rock cover breather hose there. Nice and easy, nice and simple. You want to keep these lines kind of as short as you possibly can. The less line, less length, means it can respond quicker because it's not trying to fill up that void. Okay, so put him in, put him on this way like we said before. Piston and spring faces up, so that's the way we want boost pressure to come through. He'll mount on there. A little bit on the back here. Now, anything down from that boost pressure, Tillix, I'm going to call it the Tillix valve just for a reference point. The other one I'm going to call a needle valve. So anything down from the Tillix between that and the turbo is all your vacuum side, right? So now we want to roughly just kind of tee in there. Now you can have this orientation however you want. Usually when they're coming out of the intercooler over the side here, your boost reference comes out and across. I zip tie the Tillix valve right here. I then come across, pick up the vacuum, mount the needle valve there. It runs down to clean air source, runs off to the turbo. So you can kind of set them up, you know, however you want really. Right, so he's going to go there. Bit more hose. Run under there. Get rid of that. Now, just lock him off on there. Could stay there. A little bit of that line stayed on there. Slice that, get it off. Sweet. Okay, so he's going to go like that. Straight off the turbo. Beautiful. Now from there, I'll cut that a little bit long. Go on, Chapman. OCD kicking in. That's better. Now it sits on there nicely. So, boost reference coming down, going through the Tillix valve. Then we come down to our T-piece. T-piece splits off to the turbo. This side now is our vacuum side. So now we're going to come up here, we're going to pick up the standard vacuum source, then go through the needle valve and back to our clean air source. So about that long. Where's my cutters? God damn it. I think I had it right on that Tillix. So on the CRDs, the vacuum source port is down there, that hard steel line. So you want to connect onto him. Common one if you're having boost control issues too, that steel line that's down inside there on the side of the head, about 3-4 inches down. Oh, you can kind of just see it in there. You can see it right down in here. I need a goddamn pointer. Yeah. But you can see that steel line there and it goes back to rubber again. So there's steel line for a couple of inches and then there's another few inches of rubber down below. So that rubber down below there, common fail point. That'll split, start leaking, causes all sorts of issues. So if you're having bad boost control issues or low boost, check that rubber bastard down there hasn't split and it's losing all your vacuum. Right, so from here now, we've got our vacuum source. We want to be able to control it, right? So if we have full vacuum and then just rely on the Tillix to drop boost pressure and to lower it, we end up with a really aggressive and erratic kind of boost control. So what we want to do is limit how much vacuum's in there and have this starting to open as soon as we possibly can to help drop that VNT arm. That's where the needle valve comes into it. So this dude, not sure where we're going to mount him, might just sit him up on top there. Vacuum with an arrow, the airflow needs to pull through it, right? So you need to remember this is under vacuum, not pressure. So we have the vacuum with an arrow pointing towards our vacuum source. So it's going to draw air through it that way, back to our line that's got vacuum in it. So we'll probably end up mounting him up on here somewhere. We will tee into it, probably right there. It's the easiest thing to do. Hey, which means I can use that little bit of line that I just cut off before. So it's not a complete waste. Perfect. Now we need to run from our clean air source, which on this kit happens to be around here, around and hook back onto our vacuum, onto our Tillix. Needle valve. God, I'm shopping. Right, now that we've got it on, we'll kind of go through the layout again, just in case I confuse the hell out of everyone, because I probably confused myself. So, basically, actuator on the turbo needs vacuum. That's what pulls the VNT arm up. Fully up is full boost, so full vacuum at the actuator, full boost, right? The Tillix boost controller, boost pressure comes through here, depending on the set spring tension, which is adjustable, how much boost pressure is required to push past that spring. That boost pressure comes through here then, reduces, drops, eliminates the vacuum in that system, drops the arm down, controls boost, right? So that's how it works. What we also have is the needle valve. It controls our starting point, how much vacuum's in this line. So if we have full amount of vacuum and wait for him to crack and start dropping it down, we kind of get real fluctuating and peaking boost pressure. If we lower the vacuum down, it means we can have the set spring pressure in here set a bit softer, so it starts to open sooner and gives us a nice gradual climb and boost. Right, so I'll start the thing up now and we'll go through the process of kind of setting up the needle valve. Oh, actually, no I won't, because It's got no ECU. ECU's out on the bench. Just about to put a tune in it. So we'll get the tune sorted, put our base kind of startup tune in it, and then we'll set the Tillix up and keep going from there. Righto, tune filer's going in. So we'll bang the ECU back in, start this up, and then we'll start going through the process of setting up the Tillix valve. Righto, ECU's back in the car now. Got him up and running. Hopefully you can see down in here is the VNT arm and the nozzle.
Righto, so I'm doing some editing and I'm watching this back and I'm realising that the audio is terrible, so I'm just going to talk over the top. So you can see here now as I'm removing the vacuum from the VNT, that arm's dropping and rising up and down. You want to double check that when you're fitting a kit to make sure that the arm's moving nice and freely. And now we're virtually doing the same thing here, so closing off the needle valve, getting full vacuum. As we begin to open the needle valve, we'll reduce vacuum in that line. VNT arm should begin to drop. How many turns that takes to drop all depends on how much vacuum your particular vehicle or engine decides to make on the day. So again, how many turns it takes is just how many turns it takes. Essentially what you want to do is with the car idling there, you just adjust that needle valve until the VNT arm just drops away from that grub screw, and then lightly turn it back up so it just kind of lifts and just touches. You want it basically just hovering there, barely touching that grub screw. So as soon as the Tillix starts to see any boost pressure and it begins to open, that VNT arm begins to drop, opening up the vanes, allowing the motor to breathe, not choking up, causing too high EMP. So here, I don't know what I'm talking about, dribbling on about something else, going back to the same thing 10 times, doing some cool little hand movements, flap that around, lock him off, good to go.
Righto, back in the car now. Like I said, we have no idea where that Tillix, the actual boost control side of it's going to be, so put the car on the dyno, just do some light load, get it up to speed. So I don't know if you're going to be able to see that screen or not, but so we can see it kind of climbing past 20 pounds straight away. So I dare say we need to go out and knock some out of that. Okay, so if we're watching, this is our boost pressure one here. So to lower boost pressure, we want to wind it apart. Okay, so anti-clockwise, pulling it apart, less tension on that spring inside there. And we'll just keep repeating this process until we get it right. Do our set speed where the dyno is going to hold it, then slowly load it up a bit more. It wasn't too bad then, that went to about 21.1, so I think we might do a run and see where it ends up. Goddamn autos. Ugh. You gotta fight the throttle to stop them from kicking down. It's a pain in the ass. Yeah. It's a little bit high. It's going to about 22, 22 and a half. So I'll just knock a little bit out of it. Knocked it down a smidge. Let's see where she goes. first run. Oh, I've done a couple on it now, but AFRs, boost, everything seems pretty smack on. God, I don't know how close that's going to be. Be scary for you. Sorry about that one. Boost and AFR's pretty nice. I'm just kind of sitting in and out enjoying the aircon because she is staunch outside today. But we'll have a quick look at the results. This thing's cooled down, 87 degrees water temp, so she's cooled down enough. I'll shut him off. 210 on the pyro. Got it. So you can see when we come in we're 101 and another run under there was 99. Basically just over that 300 newton meter mark. Now we're up in the probably 450 newton meter mark, so a good 150 newton meter jump, and about 40 horsepower, so you know, roughly 40% probably gains in power and torque. AFRs, you can see before factory boost control was bouncy and wild all over the joint. Now with our boost locked in at 21.7, she's pretty smooth, pretty bang on the whole way through. So it's a little bit rich in the top end, which is obviously giving us our nice power supply. So I'm probably going to go and have a chat to the owner. I might even put a fan on the intercooler because I dare say she is rocketing hot. Put a fan on there, show the difference that the fan kind of makes. Just bring those AFRs up, which will obviously drop the EGTs and that. But I'll have a chat to the owner now. I think this thing's mostly going to be used for like towing and touring, so we might even take a bit of fuel out of it, which is naturally going to drop our gains, but it's going to keep our EGTs under control and keep it a bit cool and happier. Ideally for a tow tune, I'd like to see it above 20 to 1 the whole way, whereas this thing drops down to about 18s at the top end, which it was doing in standard form anyway. The red and the purple runs there, but if we can have it a bit cool and a bit cleaner, keep it happy. Righto. Made some changes in the ECU, trimmed a bit of fuel out, took a little bit out down low and a bit more up the top. So we'll see what difference that's made to it. Calmed it down a lot. So I brought it back down. I'm no good with maths, but I'm going to say 6 horsepower, 7 horsepower or so. Lost a little bit of power and torque pretty much the whole way along, but we see our AFRs now, we're starting up in like the 23 to 1, coming down 22 as the converter locks up, which is right around that 2.5, 2.8 kind of area. Pulls through, then you can see right here at about 3 grand where we start actively pulling fuel out. So if we come back up here, you can see there the power's kind of climbing up and just starts to nose over. So I think that's probably a lot safer. We might go back into it and just give it a little bit more fuel back through the bottom here just to try and get that torque on. So I might put a little bit in there, a little bit down low, get it up off the line a bit better, see if we can get that torque a little bit higher through that mid-range there, and I think that'll call it a day. Realistically, that's still a nice 30+% gain, much cooler and cleaner in AFRs, keep the car a lot cooler and a lot happier. So we'll quickly make some more changes again and then do another run and see where it lands. Beautiful. Pretty much exactly what I wanted it to do. So we can see blue was before, red was when I took a bit of fuel out of it. Yeah, man. AFRs, so we've kind of split the middle of the two. Pink is the last run we just kind of done now, so it comes down, kind of tags that 20 to 1 as that converter locks up, lifts back up, just dips under 20 to 1 and then starts pulling fuel out of it again. So that run there, before was 139, pulled the fuel out 132, we've come back to 136, 135, 136. And torque has done exactly what we wanted, more torque down low and then basically split the middle right down the guts. Still pulling fuel out in the top end, I'm not too concerned about that. I mean, we're up over 3 grand. Once you kind of get up there, you really want to be pulling some fuel to manage heat in these things anyway. So I think that'll probably do for this one. We will get it all buttoned up, finished up, and off the dyno and back to the owner. Cool. Hopefully that gives you a bit of an understanding of how the Tillix system works. I know I kind of ran into doing some tuning on the Patrol, which, just for the sake of it, we'll go again. So come in at 99 horsepower, about 300, and we've finished up in the mid 4s. I'd say that's going to be like 450, 460. So again, about a 35% gain at least in power and torque, probably more in torque. 21.5 pounds, nice and easy. So yeah, hopefully that gives you a bit of an understanding of how the Tillix system works. Hopefully you can hear me over the noise. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an understanding how the Tillix system works. I probably rambled on a little bit more than I needed to as I was kind of going through it, but gives you a rough idea on how you set them up, how you run them in, how we do it in the shop. Righto, so we're all finished up with Josh's thing now. The ECU's back in the car, the tuning's all finished. Just put some zip ties around those few things just to hold them back into place. If you have any questions or want to know any more information, let us know. Hopefully I didn't skip anything or miss anything. This was kind of a last minute thing. We just happened to have Josh's thing in here on a Saturday. Was putting a Tillix and a tune on it, so I thought, hell, we may as well film it. A nice 30% gain in power, probably more than that in torque. Haven't done the final figures on it, but we'll get him finished up and get him out of here.